I know what it's like being in both worlds, and it's obviously just like way better being in a culture where like you can say the truth and pursue it and even hold your opinions lightly, argue for them, but hold them lightly enough that they can change and evolve as you grow.
This is Virtuous Leaders, the podcast for based Catholics who will speak truth, do good, or die trying. Here's the show. Marcellino, hey, thanks for joining today.
Yeah, it's great to have. It's great to be here. I almost said great to have you. I'm taking over today.
You are. So what's your background, man? What do you do?
Yeah, so I'm the co-founder of Sherwood Fellows. My twin brother and I started this agency back in 2015 to help serve Catholic founders and the church to innovate and to do more creative projects and to really like bring beauty back into how we evangelize. We've done a lot of work with kind of the main like big players like Catholic Answers, Catholic University of America, Archdiocese of Detroit. But the way to really think about us is like we're a crack squad of dudes you bring in when you want to shake things up. We're not the digital marketers that you call when like all you want to do is just like, color gold over a turd. And sometimes that like means that we, like we probably could make a lot more money turning the turd gold. But like, I think what we're really after is long-term impact, building a future that Catholics can live in. That's going to allow us to raise families, have like continue our faith and just continue to build Catholic culture.
Can you give an example of that?
Yeah, sure. I think we just did a project for a group out in Virginia. So there's a roofing company that was started by a bunch of guys who came out of Christendom, and they were like, struggling to find gigs because that's what happens when you go to a liberal arts school. And they started doing roofing. They were very successful because they're just really trustworthy, good guys. And they've now kind of broadened to many other areas apart from Virginia. They had launched a solar company. Oh, actually, and one of their main goals is really to like give young men enough of an income that they can raise a family and allow their wives to stay home. And so even though they're not doing like direct evangelization, they see their company as a mission field. They talk about their faith with their team. They are very intentional about how they take care of their people and hiring Catholics when they can. And that allows for them to have just a long-term impact on the families' lives that work inside of the company who they touch. So we helped them to launch a solar arm. They came to us after having launched it to crickets, as it were. They're really struggling to make that like part of their company profitable. They were losing a lot of money, and they thought that a lot of the different kinds of like sales approaches that they were taking and that they were using in roofing would really copy paste over to solar, and it didn't. And so they really needed a different position, a new brand, a new wave, kind of coming at the market that was going to set them apart from, a very crowded landscape. And that's really a huge part of what we help companies do is like think about their position, think about how they're going to show up differently, what actually makes you different, and isn't just like putting different colors on the website. And we kind of came out of that with like a different target audience and a way of, just approaching the market around like energy freedom and energy independence rather than sort of like green technology or just technology because it's cool, which that's like how a lot of those guys show up. And so they were able to reach 1 million more in revenue that year than they would have otherwise without this project. So that's just an example. I mean, it's not like a really on the nose direct Catholic thing, but I think a lot of times when we're trying to do things from that angle of like, hey, we're just going to show up and like start, evangelizing and come to our church. Like, that's not really how it works. I think Catholic culture is really what needs to happen, and that necessitates Catholic businesses, Catholic institutions, Catholic infrastructure in order for people to like do Catholicism. So anyway, we can talk more about that later, but I'll let you take the mic back.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you letting me take the mic on my show, or on your show rather. But so I want to follow up on that, because I think I agree. One question that arises here is, well, what is a Catholic business? And my approach to it is, it's not the fact that you have the name Catholic in it,
Right.
but it's are you living by the principles, the values, the virtues that would build up the church? That's why I don't have the name Catholic in my practice, but I have traditional family values, dignity of human life, created male and female, and beauty of chaste love. It sounds like that's what the Swift company is doing similar, and also your marketing company is doing similar. Hey, is that the way you look at it too?
Yeah, absolutely. We don't have Catholic in our name or on our website, though we do share proudly about the companies that we've worked for and organizations we've worked for that are Catholic. Today, we were on our team call. One of our members had an aunt pass away, and though she is Catholic, she is not very active or practicing. And so she's been a designer with us for about a year now. And, when she first started, was very reticent to share anything about her kind of personal life with us. But today on the team call, we all prayed for her, and for her aunt who passed away, which is something that we do. Like, we're not, constantly praying all the time. I think there is, a balance that we have to strike there of like not making everyone too uncomfortable. But as we've grown in relationship, we've gotten more permission there. And so I think that's a way better way of doing, quote unquote evangelization. I don't know, call it what you want. It's just us like living out what we believe and not being afraid of doing that, even though some people might feel, like afraid, So yeah, I'll leave it there. What do you think?
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I think that's the right approach to have. At least that's the one that resonates most with me. Before we started recording, you were saying how, you found it was refreshing to find someone who speaks the truth on LinkedIn. That's how we connected. That's how I got you on the show. You flattered me with one of your comments. But I'm just wondering, what makes you say that? Why did that resonate so much with you?
Yeah, I mean, where do we even start with that one, man? It's a big one. So my dad is a Catholic theologian. I grew up homeschooled for most of my younger years. And even when I was going to public school, which I started in 7th grade, which is, for those of you parents out there, do not start public school in 7th grade. Bad grade to start. But anyway, I was always trained by that culture that I grew up in to ask kind of foundational questions and to pursue the truth regardless of what the end result was. How people felt about the truth was not the main thing. That was what are the principles by which this thing is operating? And that got me in trouble a lot in school. I was always asking questions about why do we have the classroom set up this way? And why can't we go to the bathroom? And why are we, I just wasn't willing to just accept sort of the rigidity of the public school system at face value, which made it very hard for me to succeed, honestly. And when I finally went to Ave Maria for college, I thought that I was stupid. I thought that I just was dumb. I was bad at school. And turns out I just sucked at navigating a bureaucratic system that everything is checking the right box. It's not really about what you really think or true argument. you're pursuing belief, pursuing the meaning of things. But when I like got to Ave, I just thrived. And so like I've just had this kind of, I know what it's like being in both worlds, and it's obviously just like way better being in a culture where like you can say the truth and pursue it and even hold your opinions lightly, argue for them, but hold them lightly enough that they can change and evolve as you grow. And I just find that to be something that in sort of the corporate environment on LinkedIn is like kind of this toxic positivity. Everybody's just like blowing smoke up everybody else's butts. Like, it makes me crazy. But I also think it's like a huge opportunity, and it's probably why you do well there, because you say true things, whether people like it or not. So I don't know. Has that been your experience? Like, what have you found?
I've been amazed at how positive the reactions have been. Random people who haven't heard from in years coming out and saying, just praising me, encouraging me, or saying, "Hey, I wish I could like your post, but I can't because I don't want to
Yeah,
get fired."
I get that
Um,
too.
but yeah, I have to say I do second guess myself a lot.
Yeah.
But before posting that, hey, is this, how are people going to react to this? But it
Are you
occurs to me that
married?
no, I'm actually not married.
Okay, cool.
So, so in that sense, I have a little bit more flexibility. But yeah, I guess it occurs to me that, maybe it doesn't matter whether how people react to it. What matters is it right? Is it
Yeah.
true?
I think also it probably was a lot more dangerous a few years ago to say like, well, to speak about unpopular or life issues and sort of first principle thinking. But from what I've seen since COVID, there's been such a huge like revulsion at the sort of like
Mm-hmm.
toxic, like uh not just wokeism, but like, yeah, lack of pursuit of truth, lack of honesty in the world. And I think it's shifting. I think that's changing. That there's like, as people like you say what you think, it gives more permission to other people to, to pursue truth with the kind of rigorous honesty that you are.
Well, that's probably the biggest reason I do it is because I know how difficult it is, and I realize that society can't flourish without truth speakers, and I want to encourage other people to do it, and I'm okay being the one to take the hit if that's what it takes.
Has it, like, do you know if it has cost you business opportunity?
Yeah, but probably not in dramatic ways. I mean, I got recently canceled from the Texas OCD organization
Wow.
because of the values on my website. So again, those values that I already mentioned, traditional family values, and they wanted to talk to me before having me continue involvement with them. And I just thought, it's probably going to be a waste of both of our times. I've been through that song and dance before, and it hasn't been helpful for either party.
Yeah.
And it's not like I had a huge benefit from that collaboration anyways. But yeah, so you're gonna lose some connections, but it is much more fulfilling the connections you gain, like yourself. I would never have met if I hadn't been speaking the truth.
Yeah, that's kind of what I find too, is that like when you realize that people will have your back, um, the connections of those people that do are so much stronger than the sort of vacuous, surface level, playing it safe relationships that you had before.
Right. Yeah.
Um, I do think there's a balance, and it certainly requires discernment from everyone.
Mm.
Like, there are guys that ask me, "Hey, do you think I should start saying um, saying what I think online?" And after talking through their situation, I'm like, "No, not yet. Like, you need a couple more years before you're at a point where you're going to have what you need to be free enough, and that's okay. But like, here's the path towards that." So I don't think that it's a one size fits all answer.
Because they have a wife and kids or something, or they have other responsibilities.
Yeah, like I think especially if you are, mid-tier corporate, um,
Mhm.
and you have a family, I think you have to have a backup plan, and you have to have, more of a network in place to be able to weather it. There is a significant risk there. I think if you're either like very high level, like C-suite, or kind of low level, just a worker, it's probably going to be okay regardless. But that sort of mid tier management type of role, there's a lot of scrutiny, and that's a place where like you just gotta be careful how you play the game. So
Yeah. Well, that's why I work for myself, because I don't want to be wondering how Big Brother is going to interpret my speech.
right, yeah. Did you like tell me about your business journey? I'd love to hear like some of how you kind of came to where you are. I don't know. I mean, maybe you've
Sure. Yeah,
already
I don't
told it
I
a
don't talk
bunch.
about it much. No, no. Yeah, I don't think I'm not sure I have actually. Um, so I really spent I you gave it a lot of discernment, because it was a big jump for me, and it occurred to me that hey, we have the right to free speech, but we we only have it if we exercise it. Like culture has the force of law. If we don't actually exercise the right, then we don't have it. If we're too afraid to speak freely, then it doesn't matter that it's written down somewhere
Right.
that we have the right, because de facto we don't have it. And de jure, by law, we're not going to have it if we habitually avoid speaking our minds, because then the law will change to reflect the culture. So it just seems like we're kind of at an inflection point here, or perhaps we're past it, and it's where I mean we have one life. It's relatively short. There's a eternal conclusion after that. So it's worth just speaking the truth and suffering what will, which is going to be relatively small compared to what people have suffered in the past with torture and death. Like I don't expect myself to experience that, although it's a possibility. Um, so yeah, that's when I decided to launch Valley's First Therapy with the values that I enumerated. And my only regret is that I didn't do it sooner.
Yeah, that like we only have one life to live and it's rather short. That's such a cool perspective. I mean, I feel like I can agree with that, but when I actually think about how I live day to day, I don't think that I probably take the kinds of risks that I would if I really thought in that direction. Like how did you get there? Like at a heart level, I mean, not like
Yeah,
just
well, that's a good way of putting it. I think there was maybe three big influences. So one, I have a buddy who is very, very savvy when it comes to modern and historical politics, and he he kind of black pilled me, if you will.
gosh.
So he's an expert on the Kennedy assassination, and that was and other events, and yeah. So he convinced me that okay, the world is this is much more serious than we think it is. The stakes are much higher than we think
Mm,
it is, and we have to do something. Otherwise, something really bad is going to happen, and that's happened many times throughout history. Yeah, I think Jordan Peterson also has a similar point there that
mm,
if we don't speak the truth, we're going to end up back in the USSR.
yeah.
Um, so I had another professor who gave me a political philosophy class, and he talked a lot about using the French Revolution as an example, then comparing it to modern American empire. That's the
Mm,
first time that I looked at America as an empire, which I think it clearly is.
mm,
Um, and then yeah, my brother has been also very powerful here because uh, he's extremely outspoken and extreme, uh, and it's the kind of thing where it doesn't convince you in the moment, but then afterwards you think about it, and it kind of pushes you a little bit in that direction. So many people have a childhood best friend who was speaking to me uh, about 9/11 being a cover up back when we were
wow.
in
Yeah.
high school. So that was 10 no, it was 15 years ago or more.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, and I thought he was crazy at the time, but after experiencing COVID and the
Right.
hysteria that followed that, I realized, man, like we're so far gone, and this could easily happen again, and maybe it will. I think maybe they're gonna use the bird flu next and do another COVID operation on us, but even worse because the mortality rate will be higher. I would say it's a gradual process of seeing how things come true, and then seeing how the world is much darker than it can seem on the surface. And then I also went through a phase of reading the historical books of the Old Testament, and that's when I
Mm,
realized, I mean, if you want to be black-pilled, everything is just right there in salvation history.
yeah.
So, I mean, human nature doesn't change. So what they experience, we're experiencing now in different circumstances.
Mm. You mean like kind of spiritual attack, like this world is um ruled by the spirit of the air kind of stuff?
Yeah, yeah, and the frailty of human nature, how these people who represent us, they just don't get it. I
Yeah.
mean, they do like the most horrendous things over and over, despite being so close to God in some ways. Um, so we're the same way. And yeah, it is a spiritual battle. If we don't have, we're doomed. If we trust in our own strength, we're doomed. That's the message of the Bible, I think.
Mm, yeah. I think so my story, one of the aspects of it that I don't know, don't often tell people too much is in 2020, I kind of went crazy. Like I had my kid in January. So first kid born. Um my business tanked. We were working with a lot of people in the church that wanted to really like revisit long-term investment, innovation, like that. Just the faucet just turned off. And it like those two things, I was not sleeping well. I had some health issues. I had already been struggling with anxiety, and then all this happens, and I'm the kind of person that's like I said, I want to dig for the truth, and so I was like trying to figure out what was really going on. Which, I mean, when you're spending a couple hours a day on Twitter, like that's a bad place to be. And during that time, it was just like so much to take in, like having to really shift, shift my world and like, wow, like there was so much that that was happening that was just, um, like very much beyond what I thought our, you know, rulers or our elite were capable of. Um, and also at the same time, I was seeing Catholic friends of mine like really leaning in to sort of the regime language around Black Lives Matter and around COVID and um I saw friendships really begin to there was a lot of tension there. Like we weren't masking, we were not getting the vax. We were just gonna
Good for you.
like, no, we're not doing this stuff. But like all of a sudden that sort of surface level, yeah, we can all still sort of be friends and work together, even though we have very different values, just totally cheap, totally collapsed. And I saw several friends leave the church. Like, I don't know how
Wow.
familiar you are with like Audrey Assad and that whole thing, but it was
No.
like, she's a famous Catholic musician who, during that time, she apostatized and she had been like kind of the main Catholic musician, sort of apart from Matt Maher, who, if you don't know him, there's no hope for you, John. So
I've heard his
anyway,
name. That's it. But yeah, I'm not big on Catholic musician circles.
no, I get it. I mean, there are reasons not to be for sure. But anyway, it was just like there were many people like that who left the church during that time. And it just, yeah, it was just a lot to take in. So
What was their rationale?
I think that it had been probably like, at least for Audrey Assad, had been building for a long time. And I think that it ultimately was like kind of left the church for wokeness.
Huh.
Like that is a competing religion, which a lot of people don't want to see it that way. Because that would mean that you have to pick. um, but it is a competing religion, and ultimately the principles behind Catholicism and progressivism cannot be resolved. And so for her, it was like the mental sort of cognitive dissonance of like being a Catholic worship leader and really like believing in, transgenderism and gay stuff and all of that. Like it just got to be too much to hold. Um, that's kind of the way I see it. And I
Okay.
think there was a spiritual element of that too. Like apart from COVID, I think there was a spiritual oppression over the world, which gets really weird to talk about. But like, I feel like that's what I saw in my relationships and in myself during that time.
Wow. Wow. Do you have any further insight into that? I haven't heard that perspective.
Here's my rationale there. I think that whether or not you believe in the end times, there does seem to be a cycle to civilizations like national um, or global empires. So, like what you were talking about with the end of the Babylonians or the end of the Assyrians, or like kind of the when the Jews were shocked that Jesus said, like, the temple is going to be destroyed. And the Christians knew it's time to get out of Dodge, 70 AD, and they left and they were saved. Jerusalem was completely destroyed. I think these are like times in history where there's and the nations are not just a like carved out economic zone. I think that there are spiritual foundations, not just principles, but probably also like spiritual, um, I don't know. Yeah, this is like getting really, really strange, but like, I do think that there are angels and demons at play in these kinds of moments. And so like when Babylon was destroyed, um, like Daniel was telling King Nebuchadnezzar, right? Like your reign is going to end, unless you repent. You repent. I think that is kind of what was happening in COVID. Like the global order is no longer fixed, and there's a sluice gate that's been opened up between the nations, and that it's time for some more serious spiritual reorganization of the world. I think that's what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds plausible. If you think of if you know a tree by its fruits, if people are experiencing these massive, massive spikes empirically documented of anxiety, depression, suicidality,
Yeah.
as a result of COVID, you can look at the graphs. Within an already an epidemic of mental illness since 2010.
And
Yeah.
even more than that, if you look at the interest in spirituality, that has skyrocketed since COVID. Like, and I mean, across the board. So one of the things that we do when we begin projects with people is we'll do a quick look at like search terms and their trends. So you can do this with basically anything. Go to Google Trends and search like Catholic scapular. And this was one that we did. We're like working with the Disc House Carmelites on a project. And we were looking at like interest in the scapular. And it was like flat and then COVID and then just like doubled.
Wow.
Um, if you do that with search terms like Wiccan or spells, you'll see the exact same thing. It's just like COVID. It's crazy. So like, I think that there's just this opening up of the reality of evil and good are now no longer easy to dismiss. Um, and I think people are really searching for answers on how to make sense of it.
Yeah. Okay. That's an interesting perspective. So how else does your search for the truth manifest in addition to working in this marketing company?
Well, I'm definitely reading a lot that isn't a direct correlation, and I write a Substack. So you can find that through Sherwood Fellows or just searching my name, which is kind of complicated. So Marcellino D'Ambrosio at Substack.com. But like I've been really interested in the for a long time, I've been very interested in uh, sort of anthropology, which I don't know exactly how to articulate this entire thing, but I just started to see that human beings are not atomized individuals. We don't do well when we're sort of sectioned off from other people. We really need each other. And the way that human beings organize themselves around, or historically have always organized themselves, is through this essential like schema. It's like a group of people have a radical or distinct set of beliefs. They tell those beliefs through a mythology that's like consistently shared. Um, they participate in that mythology through rituals, and uh, they keep those rituals present to them through like totems and symbols. That's basically like how human beings have historically structured relationships. And we have been so like kind of cut off from that. It's almost like even this kind of like talking about it is a little awkward and weird. Like rituals, that sounds really culty. But historically, everything has always been symbolic, religious, up until like the 1700s and the Enlightenment, when we had decided that like science was everything, rationality is everything. Everyone like has a right to individual freedom and pursuit of whatever they want to do. And like society can really just organize itself by, like each person's pursuit of their own individual good apart from each other. That leads to what we see now, which is a collapse in birth rates, massive depression, massive like problems mentally, failure to launch, especially among young men. I think this hits young men the hardest out of any group. They have no kind of story to tell or vision for how they're supposed to live in the world, or ritual that tells them they're a man. And so they end up doing that within video games. Like that's kind of the only place that they get to have where there's a, like symbolic, interesting call to action and brotherhood and like, initiation that sometimes these characters are going through. And so they just stay stuck there. So like I've been trying to help the companies that we work with to think more in those terms and to leverage them for, branding. And but ultimately like that stuff can only really come into play a little bit, so somewhat in the like marketing world. And a lot of it does just have to kind of impact how we live with our families and how we live in community and what kinds of things we invest in. And so for instance, like we are in Dallas. My wife and I have put roots down. We are not moving. A huge reason why I have been building this company is because I don't want to have to move all over the country whenever, the economy, I lose a job or whatever. And so like, I want to build roots, long-term relationships. I want to give my family a sense of identity. So like we have a coat of arms, we have values, we have a thing that we do with our, like every day we go to school, we say our motto. And
What's your motto?
further up and further in, which is from like um, the Chronicles of Narnia.
What does that mean?
Uh, in in the final book, the last battle, there's this like all of the characters find themselves in heaven. There's a sort of second coming, the end of the world. They find themselves in sort of the new Narnia, the recreated Narnia with Aslan, and they're all just like so excited that they're running to explore the absolute magnificence and beauty of this new world. And they're shouting to each other further up and further in, like kind of further up and into heaven. So yeah, that's the motto.
Wow, that's beautiful. That is so cool. Where did you get those ideas from? The family coat of arms and motto and all that.
Yeah, again, just this fascination with tribe and with identity, and like how people get their identity, which is not individual. It's like identity is actually always a communal feature. It's always something that you get from relationship, and whether that's from saying I am not like them or I am like these people. Those two both are
Mhm.
sort of
Yeah.
factors in sort of identity development. It's always relational. So like
Mm.
I realized that um, in all of my favorite books and all of my favorite stories, like that was a present reality. Um, and then when I started looking at history, started realizing like, hey, actually, this is a really new thing for us to not have that anywhere. That's probably why it feels like crap today. And so I've just been like trying to find ways of bringing that more into my life.
Well, your children are privileged. They're blessed for that. What do you write about in your Substack?
Yeah. A lot of what we were talking about today, I think like I'm commenting on culture, on sort of the post-liberal age, the coming post-liberal age. I don't know if you're familiar with that terminology, but essentially like we've been living in a experiment called liberalism for about 200 years, and that is falling apart right now. It is essentially the idea that like every person can live as an individual apart from the group, and if we organize society in this like kind of atomized, allow people to pursue their own freedom and their own desires to the nth degree, we'll have eternal progress. And we just got to get rid of all these fences from tradition and like allow for maximum self-expression, and that ultimately ends in uh like every individual like, has their own gender, and every individual can like be part machine and realize whatever they transhumanism. um and turns out like no one really wants to fight and die for that. Like the only reason why you have kids and you sacrifice your kids is because there's something bigger than you that you believe in, um, that isn't just your own personal selfish ambitions. And so, like, I'm trying to explore that idea. Um, what does that mean especially for Catholics in the modern age? I think that like Catholicism has never been okay with that. Like it's never been a liberal religion. We're very ritual oriented, very tradition oriented. Our anthropology is like um has this amazing balance between the individual and the community, and sees how those two things interact in a good and beautiful way. And so I'm trying to figure out for myself like how to live, um how to change the trajectory of my family's life, as I said earlier, like talking about family traditions, and but I'm also talking about the church and Christendom in general. So like I think another aspect of this is that as I'm involved in a ton of projects that are actually very oriented towards evangelization, and they're almost all very wrongheaded because they accept liberal, like kind of postmodern ideas of what faith is. Um, and so, like, I'm trying to write about that to encourage individuals to live more in actual relationship with their faith, to build communities. And I'm also writing to the church to try and people in the church to try and help them to see what evangelization actually really looks like. And I think that that looks like, instead of doing lots of programs at churches and lots of like kind of media projects, I think it looks like helping people start hair salons and helping people start um, daycares and schools, and like getting guys jobs with values aligned people. Like that's really what it looks like. That's really what Christendom was and why it was so powerful. It was like the church surrounded every aspect of life. You couldn't even tell time without reference to the church and the saints. Like that kind of all-encompassingness is what you need. You need that in order for people to come into it. So anyway, I mean, those are just a few of the topics that I write about. Obviously like kind of all over the place, but I'm not writing because I'm like, I have a grand thesis that I'm trying to play out. I'm writing to explore, and resolve these things for myself and, um, you know, trying to articulate what I'm seeing.
Beautiful. Do you have any last thoughts to end with?
Sure. I think if you could take one thing away from this conversation, it would be, if you want to do life as a Christian, really, even just beyond like individually Catholicism, I think the way to do that is by picking a date on the calendar that's coming up and having a party around some like kind of some date that's important to you, and then do that every year. That's a really good way to build culture and like build it for yourself and for others. So,
That's such a cool takeaway. But I agree with that on a visceral level, because I've done that. I mean, just with my birthday, but and I'm not sure with other events. But what makes you say that, suggest that?
yeah, because I think it's a really tangible, very like practical way to take the kinds of things that I've just been talking about and implement them. Basically, like the idea here is your life needs to be so surrounded by Christianity that it's just permeating every aspect of your life. And the way that you do that is by honoring the sacred. So celebrating a myth, so that would be like a special day, making it important. That sometimes, depends on how far you want to take it, but you can turn that into a ritual. Like we have a family here that hosts a Saint Lucia feast day, and we always like sing the Saint Lucia song in crowns, walking around their yard. And it's like a beautiful thing that all the kids do, and it brings the community together. And so like ritual, myth, and then symbols, like they're oftentimes going to just naturally come out of those types of events. Like we decorate for these types of events. There's themes, right? It's like putting on a party, just you do it naturally without even thinking about it. And so that's, like a very easy way to start sort of bootstrapping Christian or Catholic culture from the ground up.
Dude, I love that, man. I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening. Please like, subscribe, and share with your friends. See you next time.